Chapter 11 The Parrot's Training. Once upon a time there was a bird. It was ignorant. It sang all right, but never recited scriptures. It hopped pretty frequently, but lacked manners. Said the Raja to himself,
"Ignorance is costly in the long run, for fools consume as much food as their betters, and yet give nothing in return."
He called his nephews to his presence and told them that the bird must have a sound schooling. The Pandits were summoned and at once went to the root of the matter. They decided that the ignorance of birds was due to their natural habit of living in poor nests. Therefore, according to the Pandits, the first thing necessary for this bird's education was a suitable cage. The Pandits had their rewards and went home happy. A golden cage was built with gorgeous decorations. The goldsmith filled his bag with money and lost no time in sailing homewards. The Pandit sat down to educate the bird with textbooks. The nephews brought together an enormous crowd of scribes. They copied from books and copied from copies till the manuscripts were piled up to an unreachable height. The scribes, with light hearts, hurried home, their pockets heavily laden. The nephews were furiously busy keeping the cage in proper trim. Men were employed in large numbers, and supervisors were still more numerous. These, with their cousins of all different degrees of distance, built a palace for themselves and lived there happily ever after. Whatever may be its other deficiencies, the world is never in want of fault-finders, and they went about saying that every creature remotely connected with the cage flourished beyond words, excepting only the bird. When this remark reached the Raja's ears, he summoned his nephews before him and said,
"My dear nephews, what is this that we hear?"
The nephews said in answer,
"Sire, let the testimony of the goldsmiths and the Pandits, the scribes and the supervisors be taken if the truth is to be known.
Food is scarce with the fault-finders, and that is why their tongues have gained in sharpness."
The explanation was so luminously satisfactory that the Raja decorated each one of his nephews with his own rare jewels. The Raja at length made his appearance one day at the great Hall of Learning. From the gate rose the sounds of conch shells and gongs. The nephews smiled and said,
"Sire, what do you think of it all?"
The Raja said,
"It does seem so fearfully like a sound principle of education."
Mightily pleased, the Raja was about to remount his elephant when the fault-finder, from behind some bush, cried out,
"Maharaja, have you seen the bird?"
"Indeed I have not,"
exclaimed the Raja.
"I completely forgot about the bird."
Turning back, he asked the Pandits about the method they followed in instructing the bird. It was shown to him. He was immensely impressed. As for any complaint from the bird itself, that simply could not be expected. Its throat was so completely choked with leaves from the books that it could neither whistle nor whisper. The bird thus crawled on, duly and properly, to the safest verge of inanity. Nevertheless, nature occasionally triumphed over training, and the bird sometimes pitifully pecked at its bars with its feeble beak.
"What impertinence!"
growled the Kotwal. The blacksmith, with his forge and hammer, took his place in the Raja's Department of Education. Oh, what resounding blows! The iron chain was soon completed, and the bird's wings were clipped. With textbook in one hand and baton in the other, the Pandits gave the poor bird what may fitly be called lessons. The bird died. Nobody had the least notion how long ago this had happened. The fault-finder was the first man to spread the rumor. The Raja called his nephews and asked them,
"My dear nephews, what is this that we hear?"
The nephews said,
"Sire, the bird's education has been completed."
"Does it hop?"
The Raja inquired.
Never.
Said the nephews.
Does it fly?
No.
Bring me the bird.
Said the Raja. The bird was brought to him, guarded by the Kotwal and the sepoys and the sowars. The Raja poked its body with his finger. Only its inner stuffing of book leaves rustled.